Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Finding Financial Fitness Show. I'm your host, Nino Gonzalez, joined by my co-host, Pei, in a different location. She's traveling all over the world, apparently. No, just in a different room. How you doing, Pei?
Apparently, I'm giving the audience a grand tour of my house, room by room, episode by episode.
It's funny because on our one of our last shows, we were explaining, just kind of introducing the fact that you've gotten your dream home, the house you've wanted, and so it's funny because now you're giving people a tour whether or not they want it. You're like, this room, this is that room, but it's cool.
I am also in the search of good lighting, sound quality. So that's part of the reason why I'm testing out. I feel like I'm what is that? The Goldilocks. This room
Oh
is
yeah,
too big.
it's too
This room is
loud, too quiet, too dark, too bright.
right. Pretty much. That's what I'm doing.
Cool. No, I like it. Yeah. Speaking of traveling, kind of moving locations today, I'm really excited to talk about this topic of travel hacking, and that term is very loaded. Travel hacking used to be, some people refer to it as credit card hacking. I don't like that term because it sounds like you're doing something nefarious with credit cards, and you don't want to. We're not committing fraud, obviously. So I've been very excited about something that I've been passionate about when I learned about it. So first and foremost, the first thing that I will say about this is a lot of my knowledge has come from the 10x travel course. And if you go to 10xtravel.com, we have no affiliation with them, but they have a free course out there where they teach you how to use credit cards to obtain points and then use those points to go travel the world. And when you enter this world, it is absolutely mind blowing with what you can do and the things that people don't know. And it's similar. I take it as another tool, right? That we talked about tools and strategies. I take it as another tool in your tool belt of ways to maybe not directly make money, but use a tool to implement into a strategy of making your overall quality of life improve, right? We make money to free up our time to do the things that we enjoy in life. And one of those things for some people is travel. And so this strategy, this tool that we put into a strategy can help you use your goal ultimately. If your goal is to travel, you can use this tool. We'll strategize a little bit today about how you can kind of conquer the world with it. But I'm curious, Pate, give me your insight on when. I know when we first started talking about it, it was new to you, but not necessarily new. What's been your experience with points and miles and credit cards?
Well, you definitely take things to the next level, no matter what it is. And this one is another example, right? Because I was joking that like I haven't seen your background change often because usually you're the one traveling a lot, right? And part of that ability to travel comes with your passion with the points. And this play has been around for over a decade, to be honest, right? Like, especially for those people who used to do a lot of corporate travel. I did. And so like your company allows you to go and buy the tickets on your own. You will charge it up on a United Mileage Plus or whatever card. And at the end of the year, you pretty much, save up enough points to take your family on a free trip, right? That's kind of the most basic in the beginner level um, use of that. And, coming from the IPC world, right? And even the banking concept, we're always thinking about how do I use my money one more time, multiple use of our dollars, right? So just think about if you have a Best Buy card, right? Or you want to buy TV, for example, right? This is top of mind because we're in a new house and we're buying a lot of stuff. But I could go down to Best Buy, buy my new TV cash or on just a regular Visa Mastercard, right? And that's it, right? If I get like 5% off with a coupon, that's great. But that's one use of my dollar. But if Best Buy has a promotion, right, where you have use their Best Buy Visa or Mastercard, which we do have one, you get points, right, or you get cash back, right? A lot of people you can choose either travel points or cash back. Travel points tends to trade better, right, than cash back. But for those of us, if we don't want to travel, you could just choose the cash back option. So what I would do is charge the TV on my card, right? On that card, earn the cash back, and use the money that I was going to pay directly to Best Buy to pay off the card before the billing cycle. So I don't pay any, interest on that. and I gain that points, you know, that I can use for some other merchandise. So that's kind of the basic premise of how that works. But you take it to the next level and tell us about your next trip and how you're actually paying for it.
Yeah, so that I mean, what you mentioned is good. That's like I like to describe that as tier one, and I'm hoping sometime in the near future we're going to have a an expert that's just been in the points and miles industry for a long time to just summarize and teach everybody the general premise of it. But I will get to my next trip or one of our next trips. But I want to kind of back up to how to so what does it all entail, right? What credit cards work? How do I get points? What's it worth? How can I get outsized value from it? So at the root of it, you mentioned typically most credit cards will give you the option of either when you use their credit card, you either get cash back that you can you get points that you can redeem for cash back, or you just get points that you can use for to travel to book on their travel portal like a Chase, American Express, Citi, Capital One, or you can use those points to travel to transfer those to travel partners such as United, Flying Blue, which is the equivalent of Air France, Turkish Miles. There's just a bunch of different programs that you can transfer to. But the golden egg, if you will, with the credit cards is obtaining the points, and that's what's called a sign up bonus. So typically, step one of what you want to look for in a travel card is what's called transferable currency. So you mentioned Best Buy. If I go out and get a Best Buy card right now, that cash back that I get or the points that I get at Best Buy on the card are only redeemable at Best Buy. Not a problem. Like that's fine if you shop at Best Buy a lot, but typically the valuation of most points is 1 cent per point. Meaning if you get $1,000 or if you get 100,000 points, that's the equivalent of $1,000 and just basing off of that. So you make a purchase, you make a large bunch of purchases, you get 100,000 points, let's say, well, then great. You have 1,000 points that you can redeem, or you have $1,000 that you can redeem and get a free TV, if you will. But if you go to, let's say, a Chase card, a transferable credit card, such as the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which is one of the golden cards to start with, when you get their sign up bonus, you spend 4,000 or spend actually now it's the sign up bonus went up. But if you spend $4,000 you get in the first 3 months, you get 75,000 bonus points. Well, those 75,000 points are redeemable for cash for $750. So right there and then you made $750 just by just using their credit card and getting that sign up bonus. Now I want to kind of pause here and make it a point to say getting into this game, getting into this strategy of using credit cards, you're not using credit cards to get in debt to get points, right? You're just using your credit cards for all of your daily expenses anyways. So right now, if you have, let's say you have 4 credit cards and you have one credit card that's your gas card and one credit card that's for the utilities, one for your groceries, one for whichever other expenses. You're basically consolidating all those expenses into that one sign up bonus credit card, that Chase Sapphire Preferred as an example, because you're trying to meet that sign up bonus of $4,000 in 3 months. And when you meet that, you get the points. So for some, $4,000 in 3 months seems very difficult. For others, people can get it done in 2 weeks. It really just depends on your category spending. But typically, that's the best way to go about obtaining that's the easiest way to obtain points. My opinion. The hardest part isn't necessarily obtaining the points, it's spending the points. Spending the points to get the best bang for your buck. And this is where the when you have a finance brain, specifically when you have an IBC type brain, you're trying to get the best value for your dollar. You're trying to make your money work for you multiple times. So, what does 75,000 points mean? Well, like I mentioned, if you retain it on a Chase statement for an Amazon purchase, $750. But if you use it for travel through the Chase portal, it's valued at 1.2 cents. So instead of 1 cent per point, it's 1.2 cents per point. So you're getting a little bit more bang for your buck. It's about, I think it's like 1,200 or about $1,000 at that point if you redeem it on the Chase portal. So if you do it that way, boom, you've already gotten more value from that than just cashing it out for points. But the fun part is when you start transferring it to travel partners and then booking on points those flights and those you can even use it for hotel stays. That's when you can really get the outsized share of your dollar, right? Does that make sense? Do you have any questions on that?
So it's kind of like if you think about it, there's level one, which is what I talked about, right? Level one is great. You're using the points one-to-one exchange. And then, I mean, like pennies, not the dollars, to be honest, right? When you do that. And then there's the level two, where you're using the J Sapphire, that type of cards, and then you're redeeming it through that. You're staying within house. And then there's the third level, is where you learn where to transfer those points to and take advantage of special promotions. Because right now, for example, on my build card, I have over 250,000 points, but I'm not going to redeem it through, we could talk about build later. I'm not going to redeem it there from their site. I'm waiting for a transfer partner opportunity, because I know that Alaskan Air had done this before, where I get 1 point transfer over there will equal 2 points, right?
So you
So,
have 500,000 points.
oh yeah. And what can I get? That's always my question, right? Because I haven't done a lot of that fourth level hack or play, right? Like I'll have to figure out. I'm going to reach out to you, obviously, when that happens. Like, okay, well now I have 500,000 points. Where can I go? Where's the place? Now that I transfer, let's say, to Alaskan Air, right? Then do I go to Alaskan Air and look for places to book? Is that how that works?
Good question. Yeah, so that's part of the strategy, right? That's taking the tool and putting it into your strategy. So one strategy is, okay, I'm going to get what I think is the best value for my points. You're thinking Alaskan Airlines, that's double the points. Okay, cool. But what if you then go, you have 500,000 points and you go to Alaskan Airlines and you go look for a flight from Houston to Alaska, and you see that that flight one way is 200,000 points. Let's just use that as an example. And you look at the cash price, and the cash price to go there is $2,000 one way. Well, that's the same thing if you would have just redeemed it for cash back, right? So it really depends on the value of the transfer partners. I'll give you an example. The most notorious one that has one of the worst redemptions is Delta. Delta completely overcharges on their points valuation, right? So if you go for let's say you get an offer in the mail for a Delta card and they say spend $4,000 and you'll get 150,000 points. Most people think, wow, well, I'm going to get that because the Chase card only gives me 75,000 points. I'm going to go get the Delta card because that's more points. More points is better. Then you get the points and you go to redeem them on the Delta website and you realize the cheapest flight you can find domestically is like 125,000 points for one way. And you're thinking, hold on, it's not as valuable if I know what I can do with those transfer points. So what I would say in your situation, for example, is first and foremost, find the trip that you're going to want to do and then transfer your points to the corresponding airline for that. All right. So let's say you decide I want to go to Europe. Okay, my main place is to go to Europe. Well, then you realize, hold on, Alaskan Airlines doesn't fly from Houston to Europe. So that's going to be inconvenient. So maybe you can still use Alaskan Airlines, but maybe you need to do what's called repositioning. And that means you reposition from Houston to an Alaskan Airlines hub. Let's just say Charlotte, North Carolina, or maybe Atlanta. And then from Atlanta, you can go to Europe on Alaskan. I actually don't think that's a route, but let's just say it was. That's one way to use the Alaskan airline points.
How do you learn about all these routes? Is it you are, actively um, kind of learning from the 10x travel community? There are several others, I know that, but 10x seems to be kind of the easiest one that most people do.
So in the 10x travel course, you'll learn that there's three major air alliances. So you have Star Alliance, and I'm forgetting the other two, but you have three major alliances where like United and Air Canada and Singapore Airlines, they're all part of this one umbrella. Then you have another umbrella, which is you'll have your American Airlines, your British Airways, Iberia, Japan Airlines. Those will be in that category. Then there's a third one. So it's Star Alliance. Then I don't remember the other two, not off the top of my head. But what you learn is what I typically do and what's recommended in the course is okay, you have your destination. So there's typically three things that you want to try and control. And the more flexibility you have in those three things, the better redemption you can find. You can either have a really, really good bang for your buck, so point valuation, or you can have a really, really specific date in mind. Maybe you're going for a wedding, or you have a really, really specific location in mind. If you are trying to, most of the time, you cannot get all those three. you can't find the best points valuation on a specific date at a specific location. So you have to pick two out of the three. Okay. So maybe you have a wedding in Costa Rica. Those are your two things. Your points are going to be limited because you're limited by the dates that you're traveling. Okay. But and the location. Right. But maybe you say, you know what, my dates are flexible and I want to get the best value. I don't really care where I'm going. All right. Well, then you've opened up a lot of flexibility there. Or maybe you have an idea of the location you want to go. I really want to go to Greece or I really want to go to Spain. But your dates are flexible. Okay, well that allows for more flexibility as well. So you got to keep that in mind always when you're looking. Then what you can start doing is take an idea of a place that you want to go. So let's just say you decide I want to go to Spain. Okay, so you just go on Google Flights and like a very basic search you can run from Houston to Madrid. Okay, what airline flies there? Okay, write down. Well, that's one of them. Yeah, what airline flies to Spain? Okay, American Airlines, United, Air France. Those are going to be the three ones that fly to Spain. Okay, you'll learn that with Air France, that's going to be a different travel transfer partner than United, which is different than American. So then what you'll do is you'll look at the cost and you'll say, okay, here's the cash price of each of those three. All right. From those three, you'll see, okay, which one of these are a transfer partner of Chase, if that's the ecosystem you're running in. Well, you know that American Airlines is not. Okay. So if you're trying to book a flight on American Airlines to go to Europe, you're going to need to find a transfer partner within that same ecosystem to transfer those points to book that flight. But with United, United is a transfer partner. Maybe you go on the United website and you realize you look for availability and you find one in 10 months, let's say from now, that is what's called a saver fare on United. And you realize, oh, this one is only one way for 88,000 points. Cool. That you found a direct flight, or maybe you had one layover. Okay, 88,000 points. That's your kind of metric of looking one way. And you typically like to look on point redemptions. You like to look one way because on a round trip, if you're getting a saver fare for like 88,000 one way, but the return flight is not a saver fare, your overall round trip cost of the points will be higher. So you find the flight on United. Well, then you look at what's called the transfer partners of United. So what's in the same star alliance as United? All right, well, Air Canada is one of the ones. But then you think, hold on, I'm not flying from Canada to Europe, right? But what you'll notice is whenever Saver Rewards airfares get released on United's calendar, typically they're also going to get released to all of the other members in the Star Alliance. So you'll be able to find it on Singapore Airlines and you'll be able to find it on Air Canada, which their transfer partner is Aeroplan. That's the name of their point currency. So then you go on Air Canada and you see the same flight. You look for the exact same flight on the exact same date. But then you see that that same flight is 60,000 points. And you're like, wait, hold on. That same flight on United is 88,000, but on Air Canada, it's 60. Well, Air Canada is also a transfer partner of Chase. So that's basically where you're going to start. Is the first thing you would do is you would look at I think there's 13 travel partners, don't quote me on this, of Chase. You're going to go and you're going to look for that flight on all of those travel partners. And some of them will have it and some of it will don't. The ones that don't, you just cross them off your list for that specific flight. And then you look through them. So top to bottom, that's kind of where I recommend starting is start on Google Flights to see if there's even a route there. Okay, you identified it on United, you found the cheapest one was actually on Air Canada. All right, well, let's talk about American Airlines. Okay, well, American Airlines, the only way to get American Airlines points is if you have an American Airlines credit card. But you can book American Airlines flights on British Airways or on Japan Airlines, right? I'm using this as an example. Also, this is how I booked my flight. So me, the wife, and father-in-law are going to Japan in a couple of weeks, and this was our first like Asia trip, so Asia redemption trip, and we booked first class and business class. Right. So for us, it was either fly from Houston to Japan and there was really bad redemptions. I would have to like lay over in Singapore to get to Japan, or reposition to DFW. So from Houston to DFW, it's a 45-minute flight on Southwest or American and all these flights. So I looked and I found, okay, from DFW, they fly direct to Tokyo. All right. That flight is typically on Japan Airlines. Go figure, right? Japan Airlines flying to Japan. So I didn't have American Airlines points, right? But I had Chase credit card, which transfers over to British Airways. Now with Asia and with Europe, typically their award calendar is released about 11 11 months before, 330-ish days prior, like ahead of the time. So that's what we did. Like it was like early July. We were actually in Niagara Falls, and early July, a calendar got released, and I thought, oh look, I found some good reward redemptions, and I found the flight from DFW to Tokyo for it was 80,000 points flying on Japan Airlines. Right, this one was business. So I got the two because typically it's very difficult to find three seats together on the same flight. Typically, you're going to be released in pairs. It's rare that you're going to find more than two at a time. But there was two available, but there was also one available in first class, Japan Airlines. So I noticed that the cost for each of the business ones was 80,000 and the cost for the first class was 100,000. And so I figured, okay, well that is a really good redemption. Anytime you can go overseas to Japan from the US for 80,000 points on business class, that is a very, very good deal. I just mentioned going from Houston to Europe on United will cost about 88,000 points. And that's a saver fare. Like that's the lowest you're more likely
Go
going to
way
find.
back in the airplane.
No, I mean this one on United would be business, but it's very difficult to find that, right? So to find 80,000, it's a 14-hour flight is a really, really good redemption. So what I did was I went on my Chase portal and I went to go transfer the points and I transferred it on to British Airways. Although the flight was on Japan Airlines, I had to book it through British Airways, right? So I transferred it to my British Airways number, my account, and then from there I booked it, the three flights on Japan Airlines. Then I got my confirmation. Okay, cool. I found that, but that was one way. Now I had to find the return flight. But see, with us, we were pretty flexible. We knew we wanted to go for anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 weeks. So then for the next 2 weeks, I would check availability until they were released. And sure enough, one of them, it was like 17 days later, I believe, we found return flights, but this time we found three business class coming back. There was no first class availability. So we decided to do the three business class flights coming back. And I had points racked up and I got them for the same valuation. I think it was 80,000 points again, transferred the 240,000 for the three of us there. Now, that sounds like a lot of points. And don't get me wrong, it is. I just mentioned that 75,000 points is the sign up bonus for Chase, the Sapphire card. But you can get sign up bonuses. You're not limited to one card a year. You're limited to what your spending can do. So if you know your expenses are $4,000 in 3 months, well, then in 3 months' time, you can go out and get another card. Maybe this time you go ahead and get the American Express Gold card, which can give you 90,000 points in 3 months.
Or you can also refer, right? You can refer your own spouse to, also apply, right? So you can actually earn bonus point for referring people. So that's another way to kind of back up that deal.
That's referred to as in the travel industry as player two. So when you basically have player one going and player two follows the exact same steps. So I open up the Chase card, I get 75,000 points. I then refer player two for that same card. I get 15,000 points as a referral bonus. She then gets 75,000 points. So right there, between two cards, we have accumulated 165,000 points. Boom. We've covered one round trip to Asia. That's to Asia, right? I mean, going to Europe, realistically, you can go to Europe on points wise for 60,000 points or less. I've booked flights for 45, 50,000. So you do it one more time, one more cycle, open up another card, American Express, like I said, maybe the gold card. That's 90,000 points. Referral, I think, is 20. She gets 90,000 for her. So then you have another 200,000 points. You very comfortably have enough to go there. And then with my father-in-law, we actually got player three involved, which was when I was able to refer to him. He then opens up the card. I get those points. So now we're just stacking and accumulating
Pays
on
to
this
have a
card.
big family in a way, in that
It
sense.
does, yeah. I have we have a mutual friend that I'm thinking of that her and her whole family could could just get off of all these referral points, can just get
Or
there.
find friends with big families.
Or just find friends.
Right, exactly.
Like find friends you want to travel with, right? That want to kind of come along with you and tell them, hey, use my referral link. I get the points, you get the points, and I'll look for the flights for us. So this is just an example of I know I kind of took it from what the heck is a credit card, like getting points to just this big luxurious trip. And you don't necessarily need to redeem it for that. The best I've heard this quote before. The best redemptions are the best redemptions for you. So just because you hear somebody going to Japan or going to the Maldives or going to Bali doesn't mean, yeah, you could be aspirational and maybe you want to do that, but maybe you have a family of four, or maybe you don't even want to go halfway around the world. Maybe you just want to take your kids to Disneyland. Okay, well, you've accumulated all these points that you can use to go to Orlando, to go to SeaWorld, to go to Disneyland, and you can use those points also to book hotels.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna talk about that too,
yeah,
because I
it
know a friend of mine who's very big on hotel point, you know, and that's a whole other game different than the airline point play.
it's it's similar. Typically with hotels, the valuations of the hotels are going to be less. You're going to get less bang for your buck on a hotel than you are on a flight. So my personal strategy, and again, not saying anybody has to do this, I typically at this point, and just kind of being in this game for what I did determine a long time, just because of my experience, I only use my points for flights in business class that are going over an ocean. Because to me, I want the lie down. I don't, if I'm flying from Texas to California or from Texas to New York or wherever, it's a 3 hour flight. I don't need to fly first class because first class on a domestic flight is just a wider seat. And I'm a small guy. Like I can fit on a regular seat. And I'm flying with Flying Southwest or wherever. So I won't
You
use
get
those
free
points.
water, okay? You get free
I
water.
Sorry, you get free water, 2 free bottles of water. But with the hotel, if I wanted to use a hotel, typically, if I'm staying, like, at a Holiday Inn chain, a Holiday Inn hotel is gonna range from 20,000 to 40,000 points per night. What did I just say? 80,000 points got me a trip to Japan one way. That so points valuation-wise, that 80,000 points could maybe get me 3 nights at a Holiday Inn Express in Buffalo, okay? That is worth maybe $600. Let's say 800, let's really stretch it out. Let's say $800. That business class flight for 80,000 points from Houston or from DFW to Japan was valued at $5,000. Same points, right? 80,000 points was valued at $600 if I redeemed it on a Holiday Inn Express in Buffalo. $5,000 flight from Houston, from Dallas to Tokyo, or I could have redeemed it for some cash back on my credit card. But you see how it's different valuations for different points. So that's my strategy of the accumulation. But because I'm able to travel a lot more, I had that flexibility, then I can redeem it. But for a family who maybe they only go one time a year to go to Disneyland and they take their whole week off, well, those points are more valuable to use at Disneyland because the cash price for them for a family of four would be a lot more than they would have to pay that out of pocket, right? To get these points, they didn't have to do anything extravagant. They just had to meet the sign up bonus. So the best redemptions are the best redemptions for you.
Absolutely. And I honestly haven't really gone into the level 3 and 4 like yourself. And partially is because, I have a kid in high school and I'm just right now in the phase of like, let's just build up the points. And then once she's gone, we'll figure it out. Once she's gone, as in she's going to college. And then we'll figure it just so you know, English is my second language, so
Yeah.
sometimes I say things that's kinda like you wonder why, yeah.
But
So
yeah,
yeah, that's why.
I think for people that are starting out, for people who have never heard about points and miles or what points can do, my recommendation is, like I said, starting with that 10x travel course, the free course. It's online, it's very quick, very fast, because there's a lot of questions that come up associated with, well, does it hurt my credit? How do I, what about all the annual fees that are, because most credit cards will have an annual fee? What about business cards? What about all these rules that Chase has about 524? Well, there's different metrics that you need to kind of take into play. Again, the easiest thing in my opinion is earning the points, because as long as you get a transferable card, and Chase has their Chase Sapphire Preferred, Capital One has the Capital One Venture X, Citi has the Citi Premier, which is now the Citi Strata. I don't know how to say it. And then I mentioned Capital One has their Venture X, and then American Express has their Gold and their Platinum card that you can get. And all of those currencies are all transferable to transfer partners. Some will say others are more valuable than other ones. Like Chase, for example, has more travel partners. So typically people start off in the Chase and the American Express ecosystems and then move into the Citi and Capital One. What I will touch on is the 524 rule that Chase has. So what Chase says is if you've opened up more than 5 cards in your personal name over the last 24 months, you're ineligible to receive a new card from Chase. So why people typically start with the Chase ecosystem is because run through the Chase cards first, because if you get 5 cards, let's say in 16 months with Chase, and let's say at that point you're no longer able to open up any more Chase cards. Well, no worries. You can just then after that go to American Express and get their cards, and then go to Capital One and then go to Citi. But if you did it the reverse and you went to American Express and you got the gold card, the platinum card, then you got the Venture X, maybe you got a couple airline cards. Well, then you're at 524 already. Then you try to go to Chase and apply, you're going to get denied. So it's always better to start in the Chase ecosystem, get the major cards from Chase that you find valuable. And I always say start with transferable currencies, and then from there work your way into the other ecosystem.
Yeah. The cool part is A, there's a free course. B, there's a online community, a private chat group that you can become part of. And then we are also looking to invite the guests, right? The ultimate person who's putting all this together to kind of get some insight and some helpful tips for our listeners. So, we're this is one topic that we are both, well, not just us actually. There's a huge community of people who are very interested in this topic because it's one of those things you don't have to do it, right? Honestly, like you can kind of just go along your life and not even realizing that this whole thing is happening, that there's a whole other world to be honest, right? Of people who are just kind of taking they're looking at the rules and making sure that these rules can work in their favor, right? And that's basically the same thing what we do, in the investment world, in everything else. Like there's you can just go along the life and not paying attention, but once you start noticing things and you kind of take that red pill of the matrix, then you see like, oh my god, where have I been? Like this is all possible, right?
Well, you can't, it's hard to unsee what you've seen, right? And the point that I like to make with this is that it is another tool that you can use into creating a strategy, but you most people, until you get to a certain level of real like wealth, it takes a lot to be able to spend. Most business class tickets like to Europe are going to cost you easily 5 6 thousand dollars, and that's cheap. And I personally wouldn't spend that money to go on a business class flight. I'm like, I'll kick back an economy for 900 bucks. Like I'm good. I don't need to sleep that much. But that's me justifying it to myself, right? In reality, of course I want to fly comfortable,
Once
right?
you go business in first class, it's hard to
You don't
go
go back.
back.
Right, especially on a long duration trip, right? Once you experience that level of service, and we're talking about it from like this is a financial podcast where we're talking about it from a finance standpoint. So typically, our listeners and ourselves, we already have learned metrics to make money. So we already are better off than the majority of society who don't even have $100 saved up, right? But for this strategy works for people in the investment world, but also people in the general world. You could be a 19-year-old kid fresh out of college who gets their first job, who can get a credit card and get 75,000 points, and you too can go travel with those points if you want to. So it works at all scales, and it allows you to A, see parts of the world that you probably never thought you'd ever get to, and B, get there in a very comfortable and luxurious way to live your life and see things you never would have done. And kind of our overarching principle of the podcast is why we're doing this is to help people live a more healthy and fulfilling life. And for me personally, what I love about traveling is the experiences, is being able to see different cultures. And we're blessed in the US that you can go, there's completely different communities in California compared to Texas, compared to Ohio, compared to Idaho, right? There's all these, you're going to see different cultures. But when you can expand your horizons outside of the US, and most people for their first redemption will go to Mexico or Canada because it's close by, or Central America. But once you start expanding outward, even to Mexico, Central America, and you start seeing these cultures, you start realizing A, you're grateful for what you have in the US, but B, there's a whole different way that people live. And culturally, you get to try different foods, and you go to a Europe or you go to an Asia and you see the history that they have, right? When then it makes you realize the US is only a few hundred years old, right? And countries in Europe and Asia have been around for thousands of years. And you see temples, you see buildings, you see churches that have been erected for thousands of years, and you walk and you marvel at this just true beauty of what nature and what man can build. And so this gives you that opportunity to experience the finer things in life that maybe you may have never seen.
Yeah. And also, sometimes it's also a mindset shift when you're traveling as well, right? Because I think, when we're working and staying focused at our domestic life here, it's so easy to get caught up by the small things. And then you go and travel, and then that's when you kind of it's almost like you have a out of body experience. Like you are still you, but then when you're traveling, you're no longer the same person, right? You're kind of looking back at your own life or looking forward to your life from a different angle. And that's it. You're just changing the angle of how you're viewing your daily life. And that, you know, may be an inspirational thing for a lot of people. Who knows? You might meet somebody completely change your life, right?
Yeah. No, I think, and that's just such a, I think going to finding what finding what you as a person enjoy and utilizing the tools in your tool belt, the money specifically, or your health, because that's another thing with traveling that I personally have noticed, and that's what I value. It makes me very grateful for my health is the fact that when you travel, we went to Italy last year and going to Rome, like you're walking everywhere. Like, and it's not like in the US, we have a lot of, I call them hacks, escalators, elevators to kind of make things easier. You are walking in Europe. And that's a good thing. Like in my opinion, it's a very good thing. But I can imagine being unhealthy or less healthy and the challenges that could go associated with walking and not being able to say, okay, I'm going to walk from the Vatican to the Sistine Chapel, which it's the same grounds, but it's a long walk. So I can't imagine being in a position where I'm not physically able to do that. That's sad to me because you've made this long trek to go into this world, and now you're not even able to see everything you wanted to see, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And also it's funny, I think I told you this. We just came back from Spain and I was like, oh my God, I noticed that I eat better when I'm traveling, which is the opposite of what you would think. And it's almost like because I'm traveling, I'm much more conscious about, the 3 meals that I'm partaking, right? I'm not gonna just go out there and buy McDonald's because I'm in Europe. Why would I do that, right? I wanna try the local fare. I wanna try the stuff that they make that I cannot get, in the stateside. So because of that, I'm like much more conscious of what I'm choosing to eat, which is kind of funny because I'm like, oh, am I losing weight on this trip? I'm walking more, I'm eating better.
Well, and not only that, I mean, you see the way that the locals eat, and that's something that's kind of stressing on that. Culture wise, to me, one of the biggest ways to see a culture is through their food. And we come from different backgrounds, right? My family, my parents have different origins than your parents do, so we have different cultures, different foods that we're familiar with. But traveling to these places and eating their food, you realize what they eat often, right? How they eat, portions that they eat. And because you're trying to immerse yourself in the culture, you're not going to tell them, oh no, can you supersize that? You're not going to tell them, can you add more salt to this dish? Whatever it is. But then you're eating what they're eating because you want to experience how they live their lives. And just naturally, your body is not used to it in a good way. Your body's like, oh, it's great. And then they say, hey, let's go walk over here. We're gonna go check out the park. We want to go see this, or let's just go have a conversation. And culturally, that's part of their culture, which I think is so unique. And this can help you get there.
Yeah, and travel hacking, points hacking, that could just mean, you get there on a shoestring budget in some ways, right?
That's the great part is that you could do this at, like I said, at really any point. I'm the type of person that when I travel, I don't like to really necessarily stay in like fancy hotels because when I'm in a city, like going to Madrid or going to Barcelona or going to Rome, I'm going to see the city, right? I need a place to sleep. Now I'm not going to stay at a hostel, right? I still want to be comfortable. Again, my personal preference. But if you really wanted to just do like a budget trip, you could very easily open up a credit card, go round trip on economy for 40,000 points to Europe, and then use the remaining 35,000 points to stay at a Holiday Inn or Marriott Courtyard for 4 to 5 nights, and you've just been to Europe on just points alone and nothing out of your budget. Your budget is your food, but you spend on food anyways when you're here. So this just gives another opportunity.
Yeah, almost like you don't even need to change your lifestyle to change your lifestyle. Huh?
Yeah. And that's part of what we're trying to bring to people is a different, like, I think the way you described it is so well, change the angle, right? Because we see our world through an angle, and it takes one, like, I think if you're familiar with like astronomy, I remember hearing about if the earth were to be like one angle tilted up, the whole earth would be completely affected, right? The water, the thunder, all these things would be so shifted because of the axis that it's on, right? Because Earth is at an angle. So it's the same concept with this. If you just can see if you can broaden the perspective or change the angle just a little bit, what that could do to your whole world, both in a negative, but we're hoping with this podcast in a positive way, can really change that. I do remember having the conversation with somebody just about finances at one time, and they had said, "Why did you tell me all this?" I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm trying to like help, like I want to share the message." And they're like, "Yeah, but now you make me feel like there's no other, like I have to do this now because now I know what I know and I can't unknow this. And therefore, if I know this and I choose to not take action on it, I'm going to be responsible for that. So there's no excuse anymore." Right? Right. So it's almost like when you're living in this, I don't want to call it ignorance, but when you're living in a mindset where you just don't know and you're oblivious, you can blame external factors. You can say, "Oh, that's not fair that these people get to fly business class, or these people can have fancy cars, or these people can go on a walk whenever they want." But when you learn about, okay, that person, I've learned about everything that they're doing, and yet I still don't have what they have or are able to do what they're doing, you can't blame external factors anymore. You then need to look within, and that can be the most challenging thing. And that really hit me because I thought some people might not be ready for the information. And that's okay. That's okay, but
Mm.
it just blew my mind.
I think that kind of hit hard for me because I have always been under the assumption that everybody kind of want like why don't you want to know? Like why wouldn't you be interested in knowing what's in my head? I mean, that kind of sounds like kind of pompous, but my point is
Listen to me. I'm very smart.
my point is it's almost like, oh my god, I see it's almost like I have X-ray vision, right? Like in the financial world, it's almost like that. Like I can see what you guys don't see, and I'm describing, you know, what I see, and then if you just like do the same steps that I've done, you will see the same thing, right? So that's kind of that process in my head, and it's difficult. But then I realized some people just they don't want to know, like you know what I mean? Like it's kind of a scary thing.
It is. Well, people are, and naturally so, people are in their comfort zone, and it's comfortable what we know. But true growth and to get to where we want to go, we can't do the same things that got us to where we are right now. Right? The things that got us to the point in our life, whether it's good or bad, will not be the same things that get us to the next point in our life. There is, in order to change, there has to be change. Like there is no other way to put that. You want to be healthier, you have to make a change. You want to be financially better off, you have to make change. And with that, you have to first identify what is your reason for changing. And I think with this episode, being able to at least expose, I mean, this is just like intro 101 to traveling, right? To
Oh
both
yeah, so we just
travel
scratched the
hacking,
surface.
just scratching the surface. But if you could give somebody some glimmer of hope, and for the people that might be listening that are thinking, traveling is something that's one of my whys to why I want to make more money. Well, then they hear this and they think, that's something that can resonate with me. Well, then maybe they take the steps to open up that credit card, or take that free 10x travel course, or whichever step might be the best one for them. But if they hadn't heard this, or if they hadn't learned about it, how would they have known? And so being able to provide, that's why I love having these conversations, because we come from different perspectives, but also we met with people who also are coming from different perspectives, and being able to share that is, you might not be in the right place. It might not be the right time or the right place for you to absorb this information, but there might be a time in the future where you realize, you know what? I heard about that before. I need to get on that because that's something that I really want.
And make sure we'll make sure that the 10x information is in the show notes for people who are interested. Starting that, investigate for yourself. That's all we wanted to do is just share what we know. And if that's something that's interesting and worth your time, invest a little bit of time of learning, then that resource is available and
Yeah,
free.
and I mean, feel free to reach out to us as well because I love talking about it. I love just strategizing with people because it's great when you can help somebody get to whether again from a financial standpoint, if you can help somebody make more money, that's going to have an impact on their lives. It's very rewarding. But same thing with the travel hacking. If you could, if you, I can tell somebody about a card they can use and teach them how to get those points, then I can see them on their vacation, and I know that I had a part to play in that. Like as you very well know, Pay, being a teacher and just what you do for others.
Exactly. And even if what is it? Because of that sign up bonus, the referral bonus. Hey,
Yeah.
it's a
Easy to
win-win. Yeah.
it's a
Use your
win-win
link.
for sure. Yeah, no, I definitely I love it. Like I've mentioned, one of one of my passions is traveling, and I love seeing the world. I'm grateful that I'm able to do it at a young age when my body's still healthy, still kicking, and I can interact with people. And hopefully, this episode has given some glimpses of what travel hacking can do. Again, for more information, I would recommend going to the 10x travel 10xtravel.com, take their free course. They have a podcast as well. And then feel free to reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to help and recommend some different strategies. But hey, anything that you would like to wrap up with on this episode?
No, I think, we shared enough. We might have to do a separate episode because we're running low on time, but we might have to do a separate episode just on the build card then.
Yeah. No,
That's enough.
I think that this is gonna be just one of many parts of this travel hacking component, and there will be more to it, just like there will be when we go over the infinite banking concept. We're gonna get an intro to it, but then we're gonna get advanced with it, and then we're gonna get even further advanced and then couple it. So with a lot of these shows, we don't want it to be a 4 hour, 5 hour lecture where we're just saying, do this, do that. We want to kind of let these things, these concepts resonate in people's brains. And then if they want more, they can tune into more, right? We can say, hey, here's the next step beyond it, or maybe they're not ready for that. So yeah, I agree. It's the built card is another unique concept, another just hack amongst the travel hacks to get just more points because, well, why not? So
And don't forget the plastique.
oh my goodness. Yes. For those out there, we should probably do a poll. Pay and I have had a long running conversation about plastic versus plastique, which is this company that you could use their service to pay with a credit card, but it's spelled Plastiq. And so Pay loves to get very French about it and call it plastique, where I'm just saying call it plastic. But I was outnumbered multiple times at multiple potlucks. So yes, if you need to use a credit card processing service, we recommend Plastique, and we have no affiliation with them.
And we can talk about how to use that, especially with that sign up bonus.
Yep, yep, I love it, love it. All right, well, everybody, thanks again for tuning in. This was a fun one. Pay, thanks for joining. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.
All righty. Take care.